and welcome back to Amplify with Purpose, the podcast where we explore what it takes to live well and lead with purpose, with leadership and personal development. In every episode, you'll find some amazing conversations and discussions, and we try our best to give you some practical tips, although sometimes it's just a really cool conversation. These conversations are designed to help you live your best life. My mission is to help you live with purpose and amplify your impact. So whether you're looking to amplify your career, enrich your personal experiences, or just looking for a little bit of inspiration, this is the place to be. As always, I have my amazing guest, Christo Petorius, the expander, joining us today, ready to expand your mind, expand your thinking, and expand the way in which you communicate. Christo, welcome.
Hi, Odette. Thank you very much. Really great to be with you again today. Really looking forward to today's topic. I believe it will definitely elevate every single person if they can learn and develop how to communicate effectively. So thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. And thank you for joining us again. For those of you who may have seen skids on LinkedIn or on Facebook of, oh, weren't they live yesterday, but then it went gone and disappeared? Yes, we had some technical challenges yesterday with the gremlins in the system. So we are doing our live again today so that you can benefit from the awesome insights around communication. So today we are obviously speaking specifically about communication in business, in your office environment, in your family, and how to get your message across really well. But first, Christo, I'd like to have you share with us what is the difference between communication and interpersonal skills? Are they the same? What's your view?
For me, communication really is the what. It's the thoughts, the ideas, the concepts that you share with an individual or a group of people. That's for me where communication is. Interpersonal skills is the how. It's the effectiveness of how you relay your message. And because it's an interpersonal skill, or because it's a skill that can be developed, that can be honed, you can become better. So for me, that's the difference. The one is the what, and the other one is the how.
Absolutely. So before we get to why it's important, can we talk about how does it work? So communicate. I talk all the time. Does that mean that I'm communicating?
Yeah, well, if words come out of your mouth, you're communicating. The question is it effective? Do you have the attention of the people you are communicating to? I think that is that's maybe the more important question. Everybody communicates, and it's not just speaking. I mean, just body language, can communicate. The way that you present yourself shows a form of communication. And I want you to remember, for those listening, what I said in the beginning. It's the message that you relay. That's for me what communication is. It's the what that you relay, that you communicate. So you can communicate a message by, not looking engaged, or you can be engaged into the conversation. So it's not just the words coming out of your mouth. We are communicating every single moment of the day, whether it's verbal, whether it's non-verbal. And so I think that we need to understand that the whole time people are watching us. I remember years ago, I used to be on stage at our church, and my wife would talk to me afterwards. She would say, "Just smile when you're on stage." And I'm like, "But I'm enjoying myself." She says, "Well, just let your face show the people." And I realized it's, I like to be in deep thought many of the times. I'm always thinking, processing things, strategizing, and my face doesn't always show that. And so I had to learn, that whenever, people are watching, is that, it's important the message that you bring across. And then I remember many years ago, so you'll know Apostle Nikki used to say to the staff is that, and the leaders, whenever you speak to one another, at church or, in any setting, be very attentive on how you're doing it. Because we are speaking to one another and say, "Listen, this weekend was incredible, man. There was like 20 people that came to my event." But for other people from the outside, it looks like you are fighting. And many times we found ourselves that we had to correct that because the how, that interpersonal skill, it might show people a different message until they come and join the conversation, and then they hear we telling each other how much we love you, and you are amazing, you're the best. So yeah, communication takes place the whole time.
There is a technical term for that, and the technical term is resting grumpy face. We all have it. I do my best not to have resting grumpy face. I can promise you that I don't always get it right. And the problem with resting grumpy face is that if the people who are watching you from a distance don't know you, the assumption and the story they tell themselves is that you're unapproachable, that there's definitely something going on, that you're unhappy, and they make up stories for themselves. And we all do, right? This is not they're bad people, boo-hoo. That's not it at all. We all make up stories. Oh, he doesn't look really happy today. I better not speak to him right now. I think I might just upset him. So the resting grumpy face is a real thing. And the very quick antidote for resting grumpy face is just smile. Dr. Janine says it all the time. You're never fully dressed without a smile. So make every effort to smile to the people. Even if you're in deep thought, try and remind yourself that just put a smiley face, because it makes you a little bit more approachable, and it changes the story that people are telling themselves about you. So, Christo, why is communication important? Why should we care about saying the right words, or not huffing and puffing because I didn't get my way, or not being too animated without a smile when we're having conversations with other people? Why is it important?
For me, in my line of work and in my life, it's important for me that I show interest to the people that I talk to. It's important for me that we have good relationship and we have a good understanding of where we're going. I'm a firm believer of creating clarity, when we speak and when we want to do something. And so communicating and having effective communication for me is important for that reason, is to relay the correct message and to relay the message correctly in whatever sense or scene that we might find ourselves. In business, if you tell people what the vision is, or you tell people what the goal is, but it's not clear, it's not effective, people don't feel that they have buy-in, the output is gonna definitely show that you didn't communicate correctly. And I've seen many people struggle with that, but I told you how many times that this is what I want. Yes, the words came out of your mouth, but there wasn't clarity, there was no connection, there was no heart. Secondly, like in my relationship, I think it's important. I know it's important for me to communicate with my wife, my spouse, to make sure that, we have a good marriage, we have a good, family home. And obviously now we have a young 1-year-old. It's important that we communicate. The communication with him is completely different. There's a lot of more visual, communication taking place, showing him repeating over and over. And I'm learning a lot of things, because I'm realizing even the mistakes we make with our toddlers, it's possible that we make them in the boardroom as well. We assume people know what we are saying. We assume that we told him to get the thing. This morning, even I packed a lunch bag or a bag for him, with all his favorite toys from home. And one of them is just an empty bottle, just one of the, a still water bottle. And so my wife asked me, what's in the bag? I said, no, it's his bottle, and then there's a stick that he took from the garden. A couple of other things. Yeah. And then she walked to the kitchen and says, no, his water bottle is right there. You didn't put it in. She's like, what water bottle did you put in? And I'm like, the water bottle. And then I had to explain to her, it's the one with the blue cap, the one that he plays with. So she's like, oh, it's the one he plays with, not the water bottle that he's drinking. And I mean, that's just a clear sign of communicating, but not effectively communicating. And it's important to make sure that, the message that we are relaying, that everybody understands, everybody has buy-in, and we have their presence, when we speak to them. So I think those are the important things for me when it comes to communication.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I would add that we want to think about not only the positive information we want to relay, we want to also be upfront about the things that could potentially go wrong and how we deal with things. I had a conversation with a client yesterday who is considering taking on a really big contract. It's a really big deal. And one of the, so back from our quick intermittent freeze on Wi-Fi, one of the things that we need to take into consideration when we are communicating is, how do we deal with broken promises? How do we deal with things going wrong? What are the ways in which we handle these things? It's important when we communicate that we don't just talk about the positive things, but we also talk about how we are going to deal with those things when they go wrong. Because the truth is, as much as I didn't enjoy that ad that says what could go wrong, the truth is things go wrong. And if we don't have a bit of a verbal upfront about what are the things that are okay to do, say instances that we are met with a horrible situation where we didn't agree on the way to handle things, and now I'm huffing and puffing, or you're huffing and puffing, and we're shouting at each other, and that's really actually not the way that this relationship should be working. So I think it's important when it comes to communication that we set the ground rules up front. Yeah. Communication in the work environment will be very different to communication with your best friend. With your best friend, you can be very frank, you can be very honest, you can say, hey dude, this is just not okay. That's not how we roll. But when it comes to a client or potentially an employee, we wouldn't say, hey dude, this is not how we roll, unless that's the relationship you've got. You would rather go back and say, actually, in our organization, these are the values that we live by, and our values inform the way that we communicate. And we don't use words like shut up. We say, excuse me, do you mind, can I just finish my sentence? My kids, by the way, think the word shut up is a swear word. So so it's important for us to be clear about what's okay and what's not okay, because then when the thing happens, because it's going to happen, let's be clear, at some point something's going to happen, you're not going to be happy, I'm not going to be happy, and we are going to get to a point where we have to talk about what that thing is. Then we can do so respectfully, and we are able to manage the relationship and walk away with a stronger relationship than if we just kind of let people fly on their own and see where it goes. So, Christo, what are some of the techniques you would recommend for effective communication?
Yeah, before we get there, I think what you just mentioned there regarding like broken promises, how do you fix that? It comes down to like almost conflict resolution. And I think one thing that we do when we do have to address when there's conflict is to always think about what's the end goal. Like, how would I want this to end? After the meeting, after the sit down, like how would I want both parties to leave this room moving forward? And we start with the end in mind. Like you said, you need to have those clear communication strategies. We need to have the parameters set out, And so I think if we can start with that, that's going to help a lot. There's a saying that, you've probably heard this many times as well from Apostle Nick, expectation plus reality equals conflict. And so that's really what happens, is that somebody had an expectation that this is what you said, they delivered it, and the reality is it's far from the truth, and that's why we have then conflict. And so I think for us it's very important to frame that, to set the parameters, to set the expectation right from the beginning. When it comes to effective communication skills, there's a word that somebody mentioned to me a while back, is to be presently present. You got to be in the moment. So when you speak to people, like, make sure that they are the most important person that's in the room. I think that is absolutely key. Many of us have been in a conversation where this maybe took place, where somebody's like, I'm just give me 1 minute, I'm listening. I just want to quickly check here. That's not being present. Somebody else now has your focus. And I think it's the first thing is like, you need to be in the room, make sure that person is the most important person that you are speaking to. Secondly, for me, which is vital, is to treat the person with equal respect. Many times as leaders or as managers, because I have a position, it's easy to talk down onto people. I'm going to tell you something now, and you better listen, because, this is just the chain of authority or the line of authority. And you probably have all the right to do that. I would just encourage you when you communicate with people is treat them as an equal, treat them with the due respect that that they need. And maybe thirdly is to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Try and understand, have empathy for that person, what they're going through, what they're facing, even if you are relaying goals and benchmarks that some of your staff needs to focus on. Try and think, okay, what are the process that they have to follow once this conversation is finished, and try to put yourself in their shoes. If it comes to a relationship with you and your friends, try and understand the reason why it would maybe be difficult for them to do the task or the thing that you're asking them. Those three things I think is vitally important. It comes back to the thing I said right in the beginning. It's that how, and all of us can work on how we speak to people. Now, please, I'm not saying that we should all go in begging, being like, what do you want, and it's all about you. You can still be firm, you can still be direct, but you have this understanding of like, I've thought about being present. I've thought about making them feel important, treating them as equals, and then having empathy for them.
Absolutely. So what do you recommend we do in the various types of circumstances? So obviously communication goes beyond just having conversations with your team or with your wife or your toddler. What are the different circumstances that we need to think about when it comes to communication? And do you have some tips for our audience on how to do those well?
Yeah, first of all, it would to understand, what's the setting? What is the setting that we are in? Is this, am I casting vision? Am I giving direction? Am I bringing correction? Is this an instruction? Is this just a mutual conversation? I've seen it many times in boardrooms and in meetings where an individual would share vision, and it's like, this is what I want you to do. But the way they frame it is, what do everybody else think? And then people go around, they give their opinion. And then at the end, this person's like, well, I didn't ask for your opinion. I was telling you what to do. And I was like, okay, but the setting and framing was completely wrong. And then another time, they asking the questions on like, I want everybody's input. But once again, the way they frame it is like nobody can say anything. And then everybody keeps quiet. So yes, absolutely. First of all, it's the environment, the setting, the framing of the context of that setting, I believe is vitally important, Secondly, on that point, I think it's important then also to clearly communicate your expectation of this needs to be a deal conversation. I want your input. I want your feedback. I think those things are key because many times, like I said, people walk away from meetings. They've got no clue what was said. They heard what was said, but they don't know what action needs to take place. And I think it's important that you use the technique where you ask them to tell me what I just told you. What is your understanding of what was just said? So I think the setting is so important, Odette. And once again, I've spoken to a lot of clients, a lot of leaders where these things are happening, where people talk for 45 minutes, the leader is excited because he shared his heart, but the people didn't connect because they don't understand, what do I need to do next with this information? And once again, it's easy to say, but I did tell you, you told me, but did you communicate? And was it effective?
Yes, correct. Absolutely. So what would you do, or what would you recommend our listeners do if they were dealing with a prickly person? So let me describe the prickly person. You've got a person on your team who's had a really rough go at just life in general. Perhaps there was something that happened in the business, and their heart is obviously for the business. They want to protect the business, but because of the history of things just constantly going wrong, they now meet every suggestion and every conversation with no, the risk is too big. No, the risk is no. This is not safe. We shouldn't do that. How would you handle that?
Yeah, so if it's in a current setting where there's other people, I would try and remove emotion from the situation, because obviously that person is very jumpy on certain things. So try and remove the emotion from the things. Secondly, try and get buy-in from the person. Like, try and get something that we can agree upon. Like, you all agree that this conversation is important, right? Just yes, everybody believes it's important. So try and get a yes, try and get them to agree at least on something. And that can be then the way forward. If you really see it's a tough situation, for me, I would just dismiss everybody else and say, you know what, we're going to take this on at another time. We're not coming to an agreement, and I believe it's important that all of us agree on this moving forward. So until then, let's take a 10-minute break. Let's reschedule this meeting. So those are things that I would do in the situation. If it was a one-on-one situation with the person, or let me rather say this, that's what I would do in the situation. Then when everybody is dismissed, I would pull that person aside. I would take them, go and speak to them, remove them from the environment, remove them from the situation, the place that is causing, whatever it might be, hate, frustration, disagreement, and just try and understand from this person's point of view, the reason that we don't have their buy-in. I've seen that help tremendously, when time's gone by, so when you take people out of the situation and you talk to them. Many times as leaders, we want people to agree now, and we want to have an answer now, and we're not going to budge, and because this is the meeting, we've set it up, can't waste time. And for me, if you look at the outcome is not going to be great. So are you losing time by closing the meeting and removing yourself from the situation, and understand that person? My background in sport many years ago has helped me tremendously to understand that if we want to reach and achieve a goal, everybody needs to play their part. And in order for everybody to play their part, every person needs to know, but what is their function? How important are you? And you could most probably, I almost guarantee you that person that says no the whole time, he's just not been heard. In meetings, he's just not been heard. In planning, his ideas has not come to the forefront. And it's simply just find out, but what is the blockage? What is the reason? And I'm not saying that we're going to follow your idea now, but just allow him to be heard. Let him understand this is your position. This is where we need you, and this is how we need you to function and operate.
Yeah. So David Block, in his book about consulting, talks about quite extensively, and it's one of those situations where we have to tailor our message. We understand who we're speaking to, and I kind of come to you got to know your customers. And the first time someone is that way inclined, the first time they hit your suggestions or your conversations with a complete block and lack of buy-in, is one thing that you handle, and let's have a conversation around that. But once you understand who these people are, you should never find yourself in that situation again. Because when you know your customers, you go and you speak to them beforehand. I always have conversations with the leaders before I actually have the full conversation. And it's a matter of saying, okay, I've been thinking about this. What do you think? And it's exactly what you said. Quite often, those people feel like they're not being heard. They feel like their opinions don't matter. And the purpose of that conversation, I call it drip irrigation. The purpose of that conversation is to seed your idea. It's to seed what your thoughts are. It's not necessarily to change your mind or to change theirs, but it gives them an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? These are my thoughts. These are the risks. This is what I think. This is why I think we shouldn't do it. What do you think? And you are free to share your opinion. But quite often when it comes to leadership, we know where we need to go, and we need to get everyone on the bus. And the way that you get everyone on the bus is to drip irrigate upfront. So if you know that there is a tricky conversation coming, you have that conversation with that person before you have it with the group, giving them an opportunity to air their views. And 90% of the time, once you've had that conversation, when you walk into the meeting where a decision needs to be made, the decision will go down. They will, quite frankly, often smile about it, even though they disagree, because they felt heard. And I think that's the thing that most leaders, that's the thing that most managers don't understand. Leadership is about the people that you bring along on the journey. And the way that we get people along on the journey is making them feel like they are important. They have to feel taken care of. And when they feel that way, they will go to war with you. That's not a problem, but you have to spend the time. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge. We are all time poor, but you've got to choose. Do you want to spend the time bringing someone along the journey? Or do you want to spend the time in meetings that go nowhere, that you have to reschedule and do again? Like, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So slow down, take people on the journey and have a conversation. See what are the things. You don't have to change your mind. You just need to, have them feel like they are important. Christo, what are some of your quick tips on how to make sure that your communication is always effective?
Okay, there was a bit of a delay. Just the question is some tips on how to make sure that your communication is always effective. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that the complete question?
Yes. That's the complete question.
Is that the entire question? We've been stretched with the amazing technical challenges. It feels good to actually say, like, hey, we had some technical difficulties. I've heard it so many times when you look at massive platforms, and they have these challenges, and you think, like, wow, one day we'll be that big where we'll have technical difficulties. Like, for me, it even starts before communicating. I think it's important to build relationship with your people. Like, it's so key to constantly it's like, when is the right time to take somebody to the side and just talk to them because there was a heated situation. Well, it's almost too late. You should have done it before the situation got heated. When do you build the dam? When it rains or before it rains? Before it rains. You got to do the preparation before. So I think as a leader, first of all, you got to be in tune and see when your people are struggling. And then you take them to the side and you sit down and you talk to them. I've done it so many times. Just a quick coffee, just a quick phone call, just checking in on people. Those things are key. Otherwise, when you just sit with people and you want to address certain things, they start realizing that you don't really care about me. You just care about the outcome. And you want the outcome to be perfect. So therefore, I must just fall in line. And you don't really care about me as an individual. So my tips on communication is, first of all, be genuinely interested in people. You really have to care for the people that you lead, the people that's in your life. John Maxwell says this, that you got to walk the room. So before you speak at an event, walk the room, speak to the people, feel the people, understand. When I say feel, just get a understanding of the room, where people are at. Some people might have just come from rushing to get to the event, and so they're a little bit stressed out. Don't go sit in a separate room and, I'm going to speak in 5 or 10 minutes. That shows me as the person attending that you are really interested in me as an individual. So effective communication is all about being sure that you are that you care for the people. Secondly is, I would say, if you want to communicate effectively, you got to know what you're talking about. Whatever topic you're going to speak about, whatever session it might be, you need to be well versed in what you're going to say and understand the topic completely. I've seen it many times where people go on stage or people speak in a meeting and they're not prepared. They don't know what they want to say. They don't know where they go. Have at least 1 or 2 little notes, because that's going to be part of communicating. But I'm going to speak with my wife this afternoon. I'm speaking with my husband. Why should I prepare notes? I mean, I'm just gonna wing it. You can, but I promise you, if you're just going to sit down and just put down some thoughts. What are you going to speak about? Where do you want the conversation to go? The things that we spoke about earlier. It's part of preparation. Be prepared in your meeting and when you speak, because when it goes haywire, you know how to bring it back. Have you ever been in a setting where somebody talks and they say, like, I've gone off point, I don't know why, and they just kept on rambling off point? Yeah, the reason is they don't know how to get it back. They don't know where they need to go. So secondly, being prepared and know what you're talking about. I would also say, know where you want to end, know where you want to go to. And then thirdly, I would encourage people that if you want to be effective in your communication, ask for feedback. And when I say feedback, not just fill in a form. It's like, speak to the people. get a sense,
Yes.
and ask them what are the things that went well, what are the things that didn't go well. A couple of weeks ago, I was speaking at an event, and afterwards, I asked one of the people that attended that I regard highly. I sent them a message. Please give me some information. Please give me some feedback. Please give me some pointers. And they said a couple of things that was negative that I got to work on. And I felt like, oh, that's not nice. But then I realized I want to grow. I want to be a better communicator.
Yes.
And so asking for feedback,
Absolutely.
growing is absolutely, absolutely key.
Absolutely. I think I know that I agree with you, and I would add, when you are thinking about the message that you want to get across, I think we need to think about it from a customer perspective. When I say customer, those of you who don't know, I'm a customer experience person. It's what I do. It's in my DNA. It is what it is. I always think customer first. So when it comes to communicating, who is the customer of this message? Is it your wife? Is it your children? Is it your team at work, or is it someone who's going to receive a message from stage that you may not actually ever speak to? Perhaps you are Alex Hormozy and you speak to 50 million people and you never hear from them. So I think it's important definitely to know who you are speaking to. And when you know who you are speaking to, I think one of the most important things we can do is clarify what's in it for them. If you've ever done a webinar, one of the first things you think about when you're doing the webinar is, what does my audience walk away with? And the same is true for your children. When you're having a conversation, a parenting conversation with your children, what's in it for them? Because the reality is nobody's going to listen to you if it's all about you. And that's probably the first mistake I see business owners make when they have team meetings or when they create marketing material. It's all about, look how awesome I am. I'm so fantastic. I'm so excited to tell you this thing. Yes, I'm glad that you're excited, but why should I care? And I think that's, if we just flip it and stop about, I'm excited to tell you this thing, and be excited about this fact that you are going to learn this thing. And as a child, if you have this core skill, then as an adult, you will be able to get through these things. So what's in it for them, I think is a very important message that we need to clarify for ourselves and make sure that we can articulate in a short, succinct way. I think the second thing I would most definitely do, in addition to the notes, is I would actually script it out. And I'm not talking about script word for word verbatim. Many years ago, when my kids were still very little, I listened to a book called Parenting Scripts. And now you're like, oh, but this is not a parenting conversation, Odette. This is a business conversation. Everything in life is connected, and every skill is transferable. And the author of the book talks about writing the script about the thing that you want to address with the person before you get to the point where you have to have this tough conversation. In the heat of the moment, we say things we didn't mean. We utter words that are not the words that we would have wanted to say, especially if we want to leave love in our wake. So scripting out the conversation, identifying the key things we want them to learn, and again, what's in it for them. If you tell your child, don't touch the hot stove, what's in it for them is that they don't burn. Let's be clear. It's not that you've disobeyed my instruction. Yes, you have disobeyed my instruction, and that is an issue, but it's more about your safety. And I say these things because I care about you. I want to protect you. So if we just took the time to think about our meetings, to think about our conversations we want to have with our spouses, to think about the conversations we want to have with our kids, and jot down first what's in it for them, and second, what are the specific key points we want to talk about, script it out, what are the key lessons we need to highlight, and have them ready. And it's not just we're going to write them down and put them away. You need to actually have had that conversation in your mind, in the mirror. I know that sounds intense. I am intense. It is what it is. So that when you have the conversation, you know what the words feel like. Because how often have you written something, and then when you read it out loud, you're like, oh, that doesn't sound right. That the words look right. And Grammarly says, yep, those are the words. But when I say it, it just, no. So as much as it feels clunky, I promise you, if you script out those conversations with your team, with your kids, with your wife, with your business partner, those conversations will flow a lot better because you have taken the time to think about the person that you're talking to. And when we do that, we automatically connect. You said it earlier. You spoke about having empathy, seeing the world from their perspective. You can't do that if you're running, shooting from the hip. And I am a classic example of shoot from the hip. And Gilles will tell you that I always say I shoot from the hip and then spend 5 hours preparing to shoot from the hip. So I never really shoot from the hip. And
True,
it sounds rough, but like, really, do you care about this conversation? Yes. Do you want it to go well? Yes. Okay. So go do the thing. That hard and that simple at the same time. Christo, parting thoughts.
I actually want to ask you a question. Is how do you know that you've communicated effectively once you're done? How do you know you've communicated effectively?
I do the. So what is it that you think we should be doing here? So if it's a team, if it's in a team conversation, then it's the playback. Don't you just want to tell me what it is that we'll be having and by when? Because there's no point in knowing what and there isn't a when because then nobody's held accountable. If it's my kids, then it's okay. So what did we just discuss? No, you need to unpack the dishwasher when it's finished because we like to eat our plates. Okay, I'm so glad we did that. And why do you think it's important? We love to tell people stuff and then we don't ask them. We kind of go, that's the end of the conversation. You've got it. Do you understand? Asking someone if they understand is the wrong question. Questions are important. That one is not the right one. What do you understand that you should be doing here? My daughter, like, you need to make your bed. Okay. What does that mean? I have pulled the sheets back onto the bed. It's lumpy. I've made it. Okay, no. How are you supposed to make your bed? And what's the acceptable standard? And you also can't do that if we haven't clarified up front. In one of our previous podcasts, we've talked about giving people parameters, the rules of the road, the yellow line, the solid white line, and the white dotted line. Where am I allowed to play? Where is there room to negotiate? And where is there absolutely no negotiation? And am I clear about what those things are? So communication we take as this flippant, easy conversation. I'm going to say words and the other person's going to receive my words, and that's that. The problem with that is that there's so much gray. 50 shades of gray when it comes to communication. And then when things go wrong, we go, but I told you what to do. I had a boss many years ago who loved to communicate, except I never knew what he wanted. Never. And then I would give him what I thought he wanted. And then he's like, no, this is not it. And then I think I just spent a whole week doing this. And now you tell me this is not what you wanted. Are you for real? And I think we need to, it comes down to the resting grumpy face, because when you have resting grumpy face, people are too scared to say, I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you mean by that. And giving people an opportunity to explain to you what they have just heard, because we all hear things through our filters. It's not that that person has heard wrong. It's that the information went through a set of filters, and we are just as guilty of that. When we hear things, there's filters that go through, and that information then gets processed and we see things in a different light, sometimes with rose-colored glasses, sometimes not so much. So ask the question, and do you understand is not the right one?
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. Thank you. I appreciate that. Very good perspective.
So, parting thoughts.
If you're going to shoot from the hip, make sure your gun is loaded. Preparation is everything.
Love that. Absolutely. So on that note of shooting from the hip, make sure that your gun is loaded. How do you load your gun? By spending 4 hours to prepare. Is it always 4 hours? No, it's not. Just take some time and think about what you need to do. Thank you so much for joining us. We love to hear from you. So please let us know what your thoughts are. If you have thoughts, drop them in the comment section. We do respond to comments. And we would love to hear from you. Christo, what's happening in September?
September. It's my that's not my anniversary. It's not. We're not going hunting. We got an incredible summit that's coming up. It's going to be incredible. Business with Altitude Summit. Do not miss out. Registrations are open, And we want to encourage you to register, bring your friend, bring your family, bring your business partners, bring your business associates. Send the link to your customers, send the link to your competitors. Make sure everybody attends.
Absolutely. So if you were wondering, where do you get access to this absolutely phenomenal, amazing event, I am about to pop the link in the comments, and you are welcome to click on the link to register, join us at the Business with Altitude Summit. Who's us? It would be myself, Christo the Expander, Dr. Janine, the Intentionalist, and we are going to talk about all things strategy, business growth, and being intentional and expanding your business. There will obviously be a conversation about customers because that's how we roll. And it's an awesome opportunity to connect with other businesses, to connect with like-minded business owners. It is an online event, so you can't say that, jeepers, I have to drive and traffic. Those are not issues that you need to worry about, although connectivity will have to potentially consider. However, we'd love to see you there. You will have an opportunity to speak to everyone who joins, which is last year was a global audience, which was fantastic. And we'd love to see you there. If you have any questions or you want to know more about it, we have a webinar coming up next week, Wednesday, the same time as today, I think, where Christo and Dr. Janine and myself will talk about what's happening at the Business with Altitude Summit. And we will be sharing some really amazing tips on how to be a disruptor in a disruptive environment. So we'd love to see you there. Thank you so much for joining us. See you soon.
Bye-bye.